The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericaempowerment.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Welcome to Living Well with Beal. Our show is a health show, a lifestyle show, and an empowerment show rolled into one. Get ready to hear some stories of success, healthy living tips, and suggestions to get motivated and live your best life. Now, here is your host, Beal.
Hello, friends. Welcome to our show, From Prison to Successful Female Entrepreneur. No matter how low you have fallen, and no matter how far you think you are away from your dreams, no matter how bad you feel about yourself. Our guest today, Carrie, is going to share her personal story today of success. She has been through more than most people I know, and she wants to encourage, motivate, empower, give you hope, and give you strength to believe in your dreams, to believe that someday you too can live the life you've always wanted to live. And someday you too can live your dream. So listen close, friends, to Carrie as she shares today.
Oh, good morning, Ann. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome for being here. I know that for you, you share your story all over the area in courts and in prisons. You actually go into prisons. So do you go into women's prisons?
Yes, I go into women's prison. I feel like my story really resonates with women, especially. So that's where I try to focus on helping, just really giving hope, especially to prisoners, that even though they are where they're at, anything's possible if they just let God take control.
Well, you know what's interesting is I've known you for a while.
Yes.
And you're very successful. And I never knew your background. And you opened up to me not that long ago and told me you really want to share your story. And I was very excited. You probably thought that I would just be like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I know this person. And yet it was the opposite. I was just so excited to know how far you come. Because for me, you know, people want to hear that. And it's so empowering to others to know. And, you know, if you've been depressed, which I know you went through depression, you know how hard it is to believe that anything's going to get better. And so what do you say to those people?
Well, honestly, I was very nervous to share with you because you know me in a professional environment. And so sometimes I think that people are judgmental, but for some reason that day I felt the Holy Spirit really speaking to me, and I just decided to reach out and share with you. And I'm really glad that I did, because my message is very powerful, and I think it needs to get out. I think just to give people hope and show them how powerful grace and mercy is and how far it can go. I mean, sometimes I look at my life and I'm shocked. It's better than anything I ever thought would be possible. So that message needs to get out.
It does need to get out. So you started sharing in prisons. How is that when you go in there?
To be perfectly honest, it was really hard the first time to walk back into a prison, not as a prisoner, all right? I didn't have to say my TDC number. I didn't have to squat and cough. I mean, all those horrible feelings that you go through in prison, it was really interesting to walk through as a visitor and know that I could walk out freely. So once I got past those, though, the nerves of that, it was the most powerful thing I ever experienced. It was, I know I was there to help the ladies, but I think I got more help from it than they did, to be honest. I felt it is very healing. And And the first time I got so many letters back from those ladies just telling me how much hope they have. And, they couldn't believe that I had been where they were and where I was at now. It was just very empowering. And it did a lot of healing for my soul.
And I think that sharing your past and your pain, and you see it help others, it does help you heal even more than you thought you even needed, I think. And that's why so much of recovery is based on helping others. And I think that so many people today, there's this narcissistic statistic out there about more and more people are becoming very self-centered, self-focused. But also because of that, they tend to focus more on their own pain instead of looking outward at others and helping others and that gets their focus off their own pain and gives them a different view of how bad they are. And I know for me, I've had people joke around all the time and say, I know why you're always in such a good mood. You hear all these horrible stories and it makes you feel better about your life or your husband or whatever. And I just laugh. And I said, well, you know what? In lots of ways, that's true because it keeps me clear about all my blessings and not get too wrapped up in my own tragedies. And that God uses those tragedies to make us what we are today. And I can see that. I can so see that in you. And I was reading through all your story. And even the way you use the serenity prayer to just encourage you and give you courage and embolden you. I can just see now when I see your life and what you've become, how that fits in perfectly.
Yeah.
Perfectly.
Interesting enough, I just picked up my 9-year sobriety chip last month. And I didn't always do service work. Even though I was sober and I was learning to be a productive citizen and all these different things, I was not giving back. And so last year, I was at church and they said, hey, if you want to go to prison training, sign up here. And I thought, oh, maybe this is how I can be of service. So once that happened and I started doing it, that's when I really, really started feeling the impact of, just the mercy and the grace that had been given to me. And that's when I started healing. Service work is definitely important and it's life-changing. So.
And you don't know it until you do it.
No, and you don't. And really, the only reason, it wasn't that I didn't want to share my life, but I have this horrible shyness. And I never felt like at an AA meeting or whatever, I could go up and tell my story. I was too scared.
Oh, you never did that?
Never.
I was wondering.
No. And so this whole time I was, being sober, but I wasn't giving back. So I finally, found a way that I could give back. And when I went into the women's prison, I felt at ease because I was one of them. To me, it was totally different than getting up at an AA meeting and sharing my story. I don't know why, but I guess that was my calling, not in a different way. In AA, you can't really talk about God. You have to say higher power. And to me, that I didn't like that.
I didn't know you couldn't do that.
A lot of people will go, my higher power, who I choose to call God, and I didn't want to put that part in it. I just want to say God, Jesus, all these, beautiful names that have saved me. And so I never felt okay with that. So I liked the prison ministry part because I could say all those things I really feel and that I know that are true.
And I was so proud of you when you told me that you were doing prison ministry. This is before I know about your background.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, that's amazing that you have the courage to do that, and why that? Why would you start there? Goodness, you work your way up there to there. Right.
Nope.
And you didn't. And so, but once that's just wonderful. I know that everyone would love to hear your story. So I know that you do this a lot. So just start telling us where you start.
Okay. So, I think the most important thing is to start from the beginning, and that's with my childhood. My childhood, I would say, was a little bit rough. I was born to 16-year-old children.
Oh.
So I don't think they loved each other at all. So love was not something that was expressed in my household. I think it was one of those, you got pregnant, you're getting married, and they didn't really fit together. So it was a very violent, yelling, no love. It breaks my heart to even say this because I love both my parents dearly. They've grown up now and they're really good people. I think it was just their circumstances. That's what I was born to. The other thing that was really significant was there was absolutely no religion, no talk of God, no praying. I mean, that wasn't in my life. I really went through life thinking that I wasn't special enough to understand God. And because obviously you hear your friends at school go to church and whatnot. So you hear these things, but I just never felt like I was special enough. I just did not get it. Like, I don't know. And I even remember in my 20s saying I was an atheist. I didn't really know what that word meant, but I knew it was the opposite of God. So that's what I was sticking to.
Well, and I think that, even for me, I was trying to read the Bible in college, and my grandmother was Christian, and I went to church with her, and I was baptized, and I didn't understand it, not really. And I would try to read the Bible, and I wouldn't completely understand it, right? And so there was that feeling that there was something I didn't know, right? And so some reason I wasn't clued in to the key. Yeah. And so I do know what you were feeling in lots of ways, except you probably had anger, or were you just in pain?
I think I was in pain. Along with that, being raised by children, I think you're left a lot of times. And I did have I'm the oldest of three, so I had a lot of responsibility. Like I was responsible for them. I remember one of my earliest memories is being in kindergarten, and it was my job to get myself up, to get myself dressed, and to walk 4 blocks to school. Now, that didn't seem like a big deal as I was going through it, but when I look back now, and I have a first grader, I think, I won't even let him walk down the block, let alone, that's just a huge responsibility.
It is amazing to even realize a kindergartner could do that.
It could. And not only that, get the little brother ready. I don't remember, the sister was not at school yet, but that was my job. That was it. And I think that I was just always responsible. And that led into me feeling like this perfectionism thing.
Oh, goodness, yes.
So I work on that every day. I just read before I came over here, excellence, not perfection. I still struggle with that to this day. I think if I'm perfect, everything's just going to be okay, and there'll be no yelling, no fighting. If I do everything just right, it'll be okay. So that played a big part of some issues in my life, trying to be perfect.
Yeah, as a kid, especially with yelling and screaming and violence, and that you would try so hard to do what you need to do to not get in trouble.
Exactly. Or just bring anything. To me, I never wanted my brother and sister to get in trouble. I don't know why. I just have a really gentle heart. And so to me, that was more important than me getting in trouble. So I was just always, trying to control a lot of things. And that leads to, guess what? Alcoholism.
OCD. Obsessiveness.
Yeah. I wanted to control every single thing because I felt like if I can have any kind of control, which I had no control because I was a child, right? But I always wanted to be in control. So that played a big part of my problem too. My parents did end up getting divorced, and I think that improved greatly because the fighting.
Right.
When I was about 6, let me think what happened after that. Then, my mom was a single mom, and so we were left a lot of times with maybe not the greatest babysitters. So there was a lot of sexual abuse with me. And again, always protecting my sister. I would take anything not to let my little sister be touched.
It's okay. Just take a minute. It's okay.
You would think after all this time I would be able to talk about that. But so sexual abuse was a lot. And as I got older, I discovered the alcohol. I think I started drinking when I was 14. Okay. And because I had so much sexual abuse, sex was nothing to me. I became so promiscuous. I felt like I was just looking for love or acceptance, or I don't know what, but I was that girl that everybody said was the easy one. I had the worst reputation you could ever imagine.
And you knew that.
And I knew that, and I did not care. I knew when I walked down the hall at school, they were saying, "Oh, there's I'm not going to, the bad word, that girl." So I didn't care if you were my friend and I slept with your boyfriend. That didn't really affect me because I don't know.
Don't you think, though, that it was another way of numbing the pain?
Yeah.
And it helped you not care.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think alcohol would have helped, too.
Yes.
To just numb the pain.
Yep.
And no one knew the pain you lived in.
No one. No. I don't even think to my mom to this day. I could not share this stuff with her because I wouldn't want her to be hurt from it.
So you have a close relationship with your mom?
Very
today?
close.
Wow, that's awesome
Very
to
close.
hear. Yeah.
Yes. She was at my house taking care of me yesterday when I was sick.
That's so cool.
So, I just don't want her to feel any guilt because I don't think her or my dad, they were young and they were doing the best they could.
I don't see how any parent, like you feel guilt with your kids, right? Because
horrible.
I didn't think my daughter was really sick one day and I sent her on to school and then the nurse called.
Yes.
I'm like, I'm such a bad mom. Okay. So moms feel guilty. Period. Right.
Period.
Like they know they messed up in some ways.
Right.
And, I remember telling my daughter, I was just kidding around, but she remembers. I said, okay, so I'm going to pay for the counseling for the damage if I called Stinny, which if I have, I'll pay for that. So you just let me know. But I won't pay for your dad's. Okay.
Right.
The damage. So I was just kidding around. And she's like, well, I'm not damaged while we're having this conversation. I'm like, I was just kidding. But, just letting you know. Because she was asking what counseling's for and why people go to counseling.
Right.
And then the same thing with life coaching. And so I'm not saying that you'll need to. But if you ever need to, and it's because of me, I'll pay for that.
Gotcha. Something that happened just recently, my mom did tell me she was kind of in a chatty mood, and she said that's her one regret is that she didn't share God with us when we were little. And I said, well, I didn't even know you knew about God.
Right.
And she said, well, I was raised Pentecostal, so I went to church 3 times a week all through my growing up. And she said, I just couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
And she said, she said the way I was raised was totally different than, like, say, the church I go to, So she just said I was very angry at it and I wasn't going to do that to my kids.
So now if she had it to do again, she wouldn't do it that way.
She would not. She would have done it a different way.
She would have found the kind of church you go to.
Exactly. Yes.
Which church do you go to?
I go to Gateway, and
go
I
to
love Gateway. I
Church.
love Pastor Morris. I can't. Oh my gosh, he's amazing.
Change your life?
His message on grace actually gave me the courage to start sharing.
Oh, that's right. I remember you saying that.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
And I had been trying different churches, but when I heard him, oh my goodness, like I got every single word he was saying. He says it in a way that even somebody like me understands, and it hits my heart, and I can't say enough.
Well, so
okay. I digress.
Oh, no, that's okay. Part of you talking about your mom. I think that your mom's learned so much, but when, and you learned a lot from what not to do.
Yes.
And then also you were kind of a mom to your siblings.
Very much so.
Because it sounds like you protected them, you cared for them, you sacrificed your own body for them.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's amazing that you did that. And the fact that you would even be able to do that at such a young age, God gave you an incredible ability to function. And you're incredibly resilient to be able to go through all that, and I do know that people are a lot tougher than they ever realize.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true. When I look back on my life, I'm like, wow, how did I do that? But all along, obviously, I had angels, and I just had a lot of help that I didn't even know. Right.
They do say that everyone has a guardian angel.
This is true, I think. I knew I had to have one.
You were talking about the abuse.
The abuse, yeah. So I think, I got into the alcoholism. I got pregnant. Of course, I didn't know whose baby it was because I was the town girl. So at that point, I was 16. My mom sent me to live with an aunt in Missouri to try to just get away from the nonsense. And I did good there for a while, but I had a stillborn. baby at that point. So the drinking started shortly thereafter, even in Missouri.
So how old were you at that point?
I was 16.
Oh, my goodness. So you are...
And I had hid it. My mom didn't even know I was pregnant when she sent me to Missouri. She was just trying to get me away from the alcohol.
Trying to save you.
She was trying to save me any way she could. And I hid the pregnancy. I knew I was pregnant, but I did not tell anyone. So I had a stillborn. The baby was about 8 months along, and I delivered it myself.
What? Oh, my goodness.
Didn't realize I was in labor, but, then they took me to the hospital or whatever, and then everybody knew. So that was, really a bit traumatizing. I mean, but I made it through. Okay. But the drinking did start shortly thereafter. Same thing. It didn't matter, just in a different location, because I hadn't got any help other than I moved. Right. So I did finally graduate from high school there, which was a good thing. And then I actually moved to Las Vegas with my mom. She was the RN, and she was doing these contracts, like 3-month nursing contracts. And she asked me, "Oh, do you want to go with me for the summer?" So I went there, and I ended up meeting my first husband.
I don't know what everyone else would think who's listening, but my first thought is, don't go to Vegas. That's where do you want to go? That's not good. Don't go to Vegas. But maybe it was a good thing.
Well, it ended up being a good thing for a little while. I mean, of course, the drinking never stopped with me. So it was just kind of who I was, and everybody accepted it, even though I was, 17 years old when I went to Vegas. Just graduated from high school, 17. And I met a man there at the apartments, and he worked there. And I turned 18 the month after, and he asked me on a date. But the significant part about that is he is my mother's age. So he was 16 years older than me.
Wow.
And against all my mom's protests, I ended up staying and moving in with him. To me, he was the kindest person I'd ever met in my life. It wasn't about sex, which was really weird to me. So I mistaked that for love. Mm-hmm. So I ended up marrying him and having a son with him. But, it became pretty clear that, I shouldn't have married him. He wasn't the one for me. He was too old. I had a daddy. I don't know what it was. Mm-hmm. It just wasn't right. But in the meantime, we had moved back. We had moved to Texas. So his job transferred him there, which got me closer to home. All my family was in Oklahoma. And then they all ended up being here. My sister and my mom and my brother all came here after I got here to Texas. So after I got divorced from him, I think my son was 2 at the time. And the drinking really escalated at this point a lot. So much so that I got my first run-in with the law. I had, even though I'd been drinking heavily all these years, I've never really got in trouble with any kind of law. No problems, just, morally I had problems, but not legally.
Wow.
So I got my first DWI, and you get probation or whatever. And shockingly enough, my first probation meeting, that lady, I'll just never forget this. That lady said, "I think you're an alcoholic and you need to go to an AA meeting." And I thought she was completely insane. I really did. Who is this lady? And she's crazy. What is an alcoholic? I'd never heard those words before.
Yeah. I think a lot of people feel that way when they hear it.
I mean, I was extreme denial, and I would not go to one of those meetings. I refused. I was, in my mid-20s, and I was pretty defiant. I didn't realize I was so defiant, but when you're faced with a authority like that telling you what to do, I really rebelled against it in a crazy way.
This was your probation officer?
This is just a misdemeanor probation officer.
Okay.
That's how I was really, really defiant. So, my job has always been in property management. So, at the time I was in property management, I was an assistant manager at this big community, and
Now, your first husband got you into property managing?
Yes.
Now, that was a blessing.
That was a blessing. And that was the man I told you I met in Las Vegas. That's what he did for a living. He was an asset manager for big companies, and he gave me my first job. And I've just always stuck to that.
And he taught you that.
And he taught me that. Like, I was doing like hard things, like manager things before I even knew how to lease an apartment. Just because that's who I was with. But anyways, my manager where I was working, she was doing diet pills. It was Fen and Redux. This is back when, it was all the rage. And I was really, even though I was an alcoholic, I was very sheltered to any kind of drugs. I just didn't really know that life existed. Like, I was kind of clueless. Anyway, she said, here, try these. They're fun. Like, every girl in the office, there was 5 of us. We all took it.
Now, you took it because you liked the feeling, or you took it to lose weight?
No. I don't know why they were. I was skinny.
You have no idea why you're taking it. Now, how old? So you were like, what, 25?
25, yeah. 26.
I mean, part of that is the age, right?
Yeah, I guess. I was just like, so she handed one out to every girl. And this is my boss giving me something. So I don't know. I tried it, but the surprising thing I discovered, and you got to remember, this is the same time I'm on this probation.
I know.
Right? So I took the diet pill and I went out to the bar like I normally would, and I drank my normal 12-pack. And what I discovered was I didn't get drunk and do anything crazy. The diet pill, counteracted that. So I thought, oh my gosh, see, I'm not an alcoholic. I can drink without getting drunk. That's really what I thought. So then I really wanted the diet pills.
Right.
I'm going to show that probation officer. And
so in case you're tuning out soon and you think I'll just take these pills and that way I'll be able to function as an alcoholic, please stay tuned. Listen, it didn't work. Okay. So let everybody know that. Go ahead.
No, it did not work at all.
Bad.
It was really bad. So, once the diet pills ran out, another girl at work said, oh, hey, I got something. And she introduced me to meth.
Ugh. All these friends.
These are all people I work with. Normal, I just never, again, I was really kind of stupid to drugs. I didn't think they were bad. I'm like, they went to work every day. They seem normal. I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, my daughter, when she was in Africa, she lost her malaria pills and she didn't let anybody know because she said she met lots of people that had malaria and they were fine.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, she was in 10th grade, but she said that or maybe 9th. We all just stared at her like, she'll learn. She'll know.
She'll learn. Yeah. So, anyway, so, you hear the word meth and it is as evil as you think it is. But to me, it has that beginning thing that you feel like everything's right in the world. It's
how long did that
tricky.
Last? How long did that last?
Not long. I think I was unemployed within 6 months.
Yeah. Now 6 months. And that's what I find too, that by 6 months, your whole life has fallen apart.
Everything.
Yeah. Because it traps you. It feels good and you feel and you can function better for quite a while.
I did.
And then it takes you, by the time you realize it, it's already taken you over. You're gone.
It's crazy. It's shocking. I'm telling you again, I felt like I was the greatest mother in the world. I wasn't hungover anymore. I could get up and do stuff with my kid. My house was clean. All these crazy things that you think is okay. And within 6 months, I was just unemployable. I lost my job. I had no place to live. I hadn't made my car payments. Total everything a drug addict is. I was within 6 months.
Well, and that is quite a thing to have happened, and so along that way, did people try to stop you, to help you?
Shockingly, no. Not one person
because they didn't know, because you seemed good.
I seemed okay, right? And all they knew was I wasn't drinking. But of course I wasn't telling them I'm doing meth, right?
I would
they were like,
not.
They just see this great change in Carrie, and then,
but let me just tell you, I have seen people in ministry, music ministers, in fact, that tend to, because they're very obsessive people, and they fall for that. Somehow they come across it, some nice friends, right? And it helps them because they work so hard, so long, crazy. They devote their life and they're very passionate, and they don't need a lot of sleep, right?
Right.
And so, but it starts catching up with them as they get a little older. And I've had them get addicted to meth and their life just start crashing. I mean, I've had them come in and they've done meth all week. they perform over the weekend and crash on Monday,
Oh, yeah.
and so even ministry people can get, truly fooled. And there is an arrogance in believing that you can handle it. You're going to be strong enough, or you're smart enough, or you're wise enough, or something that you can handle it when all these other people cannot, right? And I even believe that with lots of other things, but that especially. And I think that this is a good place for us to take a break, so that when we come back.
Okay.
So at this point, you don't have a job, you don't have anything before.
I still have a place to live, but I don't have a job. My car payment's behind, and things are starting to be a little rocky. Maybe other people are noticing, but nobody's noticed yet.
How long before prison?
Another 18 months.
18 months, okay.
Yep.
So when we get back from break, we want you to share about how you got there and how you got away from there
Then the good
to
stuff.
where you are now.
All right.
Okay. And you guys stay tuned so you can hear the rest of Carrie's story. We'll be right back after break.
All right, thank
I'm
you.
living well.
Life Solutions Coaching and Counseling in Fort Worth, Texas is a full-service wellness clinic providing individual, group, and family counseling, one-on-one coaching for life and wellness, and naturopathic treatments of medical massage therapy combined with essential oils to ensure you reach your health and wellness goals. Sessions are available in person or by phone. Get started on your new life today. Just call 817-232-1363 or go to lifesolutionscoachingandcounseling.com or email them at lifesolutioncc@yahoo.com.
We're all living in the moment, but you never know when life is going to take a unique turn. It doesn't have to be a challenge, but perhaps more of a detour to get where we need to be. On The Sky's the Limit, host Karen Levitt knows that experience, having faced it herself. Learn about her journey from a life-changing event to where she is now. Her guests are amazing people who are living these experiences and overcoming obstacles. Learn from their stories every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time on Voice America Empowerment.
We're on Facebook along with some of the greatest minds of the world, and that includes you. Visit us on Facebook at Voice America Empowerment.
You are listening to Living Well with Ann Beal. We'd love to hear from you with comments and questions about the show. Please send us an email to ablivingwell@gmail.com. That's ablivingwell@gmail.com. Now, back to this week's show.
Hi, friends. Welcome back. We have Carrie here who's sharing her story for our show on From Prison to Successful Female Entrepreneur. And Carrie is not in prison yet in her story. She is close. I can tell. At this point, you're on meth.
Yes.
And only took 6 months before everything fell apart.
Yes.
You were incredibly functional during those,
Very much so.
4
Nobody
months?
really knew.
Yeah, nobody knew. And so at this point, she's going to let us know how she ended up in prison twice and then how she got out of it and became very successful. So just listen in to her story.
All right. So basically, at the 6-month mark, I had lost my job, wasn't really employable. So I thought it would be a great idea to start being a drug dealer.
I was so afraid you're going to say that. I try not to find out all this stuff ahead of time, but it looked like it was going that way, right?
Yep.
And it would make sense at your age to think this is the way to. So who told you you could make money that way?
Well, it started off this way. So my drug dealer, I would go in and just buy, I don't know, it's been so long, I don't remember all the terminology, but I would just go in and buy, let's say $50 worth. And she'd be like, oh, Carrie, if you buy $100 worth, you get this much more. And then you could, sell some to a friend and you could do yours for free.
Oh, so they were always saying stuff like that.
Yes. Yeah. So that's what how it started.
Sounds like a multi-level company.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
So I started recruiting people, and then before you know it, I'm selling drugs and, selling so many of them that the police maybe became clued into it and send in undercovers. So I I sold to undercover. Who are those people like
detectives
those? They
those.
send people in. I don't know, whatever. I sold 4 times to them over a 6-month period, and they indicted me. All right. So
Indicted you.
They indicted me. I went to TDC. I took a plea bargain and got 5 years TDC time.
Is that Texas Department of Corrections?
Texas Department. I remember, death row. Like I'd only been in jail one time, like for a DWI, and that was like for 12 hours. And I called somebody every hour on the hour the whole time I was there. So that was my only experience in jail. And then I went straight to TDC. So I worked on I don't know if you know anything about TDC. I worked in the fields.
I don't know a lot about it, but I do see guys sometimes on the highway.
No.
So you were on the field.
I was in the field. They call it the hoe squad.
Is it like the movies where you're singing?
Yes.
The hoes are going down.
You sing songs, and the Aggies got to hit the ground at the same time, and there's men on horses with guns pointed at you.
This is true, then.
It is very true. And you know what? I did the best job I could do.
The perfectionist, you did a good job.
My perfectionist came out even then. I was a good hoer. But anyways, you make the best. Honestly, you make the best of whatever situation. I feel like, somehow your spirit's strong enough to get through it. And I got through it. And then.
But how horrible was it?
I don't ever want to go back, but it was really horrible. It's shockingly, all the lesbianism that goes on there right in front of your eyes. It's
is there violence in there?
Very violent. My first cellmate, I was on cell block. My first was there for stabbing her boyfriend like 100 times. But yeah, lots of violence.
So they put in the violent criminals with the non-violent criminals.
Oh yeah, at TDC. It's not. I mean, I don't think. There were murderers in there too. It doesn't matter. It just depends on how long they've been there and how good they act. And I'm sure there's a system. There's a sorting system. But yeah, it doesn't matter if you're. It doesn't matter.
So how long were you in the first time?
I think it was about. So you get your parole answer. So I got a parole answer at about 18 months of serving. And then the parole answer says, you're not rehabilitated enough. We're not giving you parole. We're going to send you to something called Safe P, which is drug addiction, but you're still in a
rehab kind of thing.
It's like a rehab, but it's behavior modification.
Oh,
okay. So I went from TDC, the big prison, to a Safe P unit, which is still all the same. You have the guards, the barbed wire. You're still in prison. But you're in a treatment. Instead of, working in the fields all day, you're in classes. So, and I honestly thought I did everything I could. I was like, I'm going to take this opportunity and I'm going to work hard. One small problem. Not one time did I ever tell any of these counselors or anyone that I drank. Ever.
They never asked.
They never asked.
I don't even understand how that's possible, because we always know it's comorbid. There's always one addiction. There's always more than one.
To me, in my mind, and even if they would have asked, I probably would have denied it. Okay? In my mind, drugs had got me in prison, and that was my problem. Mm-hmm. Period. That's what I thought. So I never went to an AA meeting. I always went to NA, which honestly I never really got. I just did it because you have to. I only discussed my drug problems. I just never talked about alcohol at all. All right. So,
and what's interesting is the rehab doesn't apply to both. Obviously, from what you're saying is.
I mean, it probably, if I would have, mentioned it, hey, I drink like a fish, anything. I mean, they would have addressed it. I mean, they're there to help. But I don't blame them at all.
So that's what led you to the going downhill again when you got out.
Yeah, so I made it through. Then you go to a sober living place. I worked hard in sober living. My family was back. Got to see my kids. I mean, everything was awesome. I had a job. I worked at Luby's cafeteria. You have to have a job. I saved up money. And I remember the night I got out of the halfway house. I got released to my mother. But I had to work that night. So of course I went to work. And when the restaurant closed, I remember my boss walking up to me and handed me a Luby's cup. I look in it and it's full of beer.
God, your bosses are destructive people in your life, actually.
You're right.
I'm just saying.
I've never noticed that before, but shockingly. And I was like, but the alcohol in me, I never even questioned everything I had just done. I guzzled that thing, and it was so good.
Right.
And I was off and running.
Right.
Period. I was on parole at the time. I think within a month, I was back to using meth. And then within maybe 4 months, I was running from parole. I had a blue warrant. Now, oddly enough, the man who gave me the beer, I just have to tell you, he did not know I was an alcoholic because, of course, I never talked about that with anyone. But you would think a lot of people don't associate alcohol, beer, and drugs as being on the same level.
Well, they don't. A lot of people don't associate beer as that. You can become an alcoholic through beer, right? Beer's just beer.
Right. So, in his defense, I did end up marrying him.
Is that who you're married to now?
That is who
I'm just
married.
laughing because I just said these people are very destructive in your life.
We just celebrated our 12th anniversary, so
Congratulations. I'm sorry.
But he didn't know. I'm sure if he knew what he was setting off, he would have never done that because he's a nice person. Anyway, so
he was just trying to be cool.
He was trying to be cool, and he was young. I have to say, he's 10 years younger than me. So that's just what they did. You know, they drink beer after work, and I could finally be part of the group. Right. Really is what it was. They all did it. I just didn't know because I went home to the halfway house every night.
So you went back to prison. How long?
Okay, so when I went back to prison, it was 18 months. Wow. I was on the run the whole time, but I ended up picking up 4 new charges when they got me. So I had 4 new felony charges.
Are these stealing? Drug dealing?
3 possessions and I had a stolen car. So, you know, I plea bargained to 2, and I just knew they were sending me back to TDC. Why wouldn't they? That's what I deserved. I mean, really, I was prepared for that, but for some reason, again, angels, God, I don't know. It wasn't part of my story. They sent me to a Dallas County drug court, and it's through a judge named Layla Mays.
Layla Mays. I've heard of her.
She is incredible. So her court is called Successful Treatment of Addiction Through Collaboration. And
that works.
Hey, it worked for me. So basically I did 7 months in the county jail, trying for them to figure out what are they going to do with me. Parole didn't necessarily want to let me go, and then Dallas County had these charges against me. So finally the parole board agreed to let me go to this treatment program. So I go through another behavior modification program. Okay, this is about 7 months. And then you go to same thing. Sober
and you
living.
told them about alcohol this time.
Well, this time, this is the amazing thing. The first night I was at that place, a girl, she became my first sponsor. Her name's Fran M, and I still speak to her to this day. She's amazing. But she was probably 20 years old. And you have to think at this point, I'm about 35, 36 years old. She's got tattoos, but she's so beautiful. And she came to share her story that night. And her story was my story, how she used meth to not drink. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm an alcoholic. I'll never remember. I went to bed that night and I cried myself to sleep thinking, I'm an alcoholic. I did not want to be an alcoholic, but I'm an alcoholic. And once I gathered that and I accepted it, man, everything was different.
Everything was
different. And because I don't think, let me go use drugs. The only time I would ever think about using a drug is if I was drunk.
So you had gotten really to where you wouldn't do that unless you got back on the alcohol and you weren't thinking clearly.
Exactly. Okay. The alcohol just, lets everything go, and then you start thinking you can do anything. You know what I mean? It all goes together. So I made it through that. Once I got out, that's not it. You go to court once a week. You drug test once a week. You call in every morning if it says your color. You go do an eye scan. Like, it's very intense. You have to go to meetings every day. So they kind of helped me learn to live life. But along the way, since I had realized I was an alcoholic, I made a lot of decisions. One of the first being that I really think changed everything for me. When I got out and I was able to even hear music, I noticed right away that when I hear the music, whether it was rock or country, it would set something off in me. It was a trigger. Bad trigger for me. And so I made a decision my second day in freedom. I would never listen to that music again. And I found that KLTY station.
KLTY?
Okay. I found that station, and that's all I listened to. And
94.9?
94.9. Mm-hmm. It was so hard, but what I learned from it, like I hated it at first. I was like, oh God, this God music. I mean, I wasn't a Christian yet. I was nowhere near that. But that music let me know that, because if you listen to it, it started speaking to my heart, and it started healing me, and it started putting good thoughts in my head. And before I knew it, I was like having all these changes and success, and I started doing things, and I had a job in property management. My first ex-husband, as a matter of fact.
That is ironic.
It is ironic. I do want to say something real quick about him. So I held a lot of resentments about my first ex-husband. I blamed him for everything. If he wouldn't have cheated on me, if he wouldn't have done this, I wouldn't have started drinking more. I wouldn't have went to prison. So when I started working the steps with Miss Fran, and I told her how much, this horrible man, she's like, wait a second. She's like, no. So she set me straight, and she made me pray for him every night for 2 weeks for his health, happiness, and prosperity.
And you know what? I let people know that when you just hate someone, and you blame them for all your problems, or you just really just hate them, you pray for them, it changes your heart.
It does change my heart. And the weird thing, and she told me, I don't even care if you mean it. Right. So I ended up praying this the whole time I was in rehab. Maybe it took me 3 or 4 months before I finally was able to think of him without hatred.
But by being able to do that hatred's killing you.
Yeah.
And so she knew that was part of how you heal.
Exactly. And the weird thing is he called me, because we have a son together. So he called me the day he knew I was getting out of rehab, and he offered me a job. In property management. I never thought I could work in property management again, because I had all these felons. I mean, you can't even get an apartment when you're a felon.
Right.
And he wanted me to be the bookkeeper at his property management company. So I was like, really?
Well, you were like, I don't know how wise that is, guy.
Yeah.
But anyways, he trusted you.
He trusted me. And so I got back into my job. Like, all these things start happening, all these blessings. So I'm listening to Christian music every day. I'm going to my meetings. I'm doing a job in property management. I'm a functioning member of society again in some way. And as time goes on, this is 9 years later, but I ended up, he gave me the company. So he's no longer a part of it. This is how you know me.
Through the company. Yes.
Yeah. And I want to say that along this process, bad things still happen, right?
Oh,
so you still have to face life. And I think when he decided to, make the company mine, I had to get a real estate license. And
well, how would you have done that?
Well,
you're nodding your head.
I applied, and I went through the school, and I passed the test, and they sent me a 17-page letter saying all the reasons why I was morally inept to ever be a Texas real estate license holder. And I was pretty devastated by that. But I didn't give up hope. I think at that point is when I pressed in further to the Lord. And that's about the same time that I found Gateway. So I kind of put that on the back burner. I still was, did maintenance. I still did, my normal job. I just I couldn't do any of the real estate licensing functions, right? Mm-hmm. My husband's also a realtor. So, I had to fall to the back burner and just, do the things that I could for a long time. But I just pressed into the Lord. And about 2 years after they denied me, I still go to therapy, by the way. It used to be counseling, but now I call it therapy because I pay for it. And I love my therapist because, she went through this with me.
Good.
Trying to decide. And I said, well, maybe I need to switch careers. What about if I'm a LC, licensed chemical dependency counselor? Mm-hmm. That would be good. She goes, oh, that's good. She said, I know for a fact you can ask them first. You can apply first before you go waste all your time on school. So I went and did my fingerprints, and I applied, and I got a letter back saying they would, no problem, I would pass. When she saw that letter, she said, Carrie, apply for your real estate license.
Yeah, because you fingerprinted and everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. I had done that already. She said, go apply for your real estate license again. And this is 2 years later. She said, trust me.
Because it's state license you'd applied for.
It's
already.
A state license.
Yes.
So I applied for my real estate license again, and long story short, I got it this time. And I think that's just God.
That's God.
Yeah, that's totally, I give all that to God. He found a way when there was no way.
Well, that is wonderful.
And
so the tragedies do come and go. I mean, I think that's just part of life. It's hard.
Yes.
And there's good and there's bad. There's more good than bad. Mm-hmm. And so part of sobriety and staying well in any part of life is that when those hardships come, and they will come, having the coping skills, knowing where to turn, having support, having loved ones, having these skills that apparently you have.
Yes.
What are the main things now that keep you sober and keep you well?
I mean, first and foremost, it's God and my relationship with Him. I mean, God first.
Now, when you say that, right? Mm-hmm. How do you do that so people understand?
Okay. Mainly, it's having a conscious contact with God every single day.
So you talk to Him.
I talk to Him. I talk to Him constantly in my head, and I always thought I wasn't a good prayer. Like, I don't know how to pray and all that stuff, but I'm learning, like, when I go into women's prayer, even though it's, a little bit hard for me, I'm getting better and better at it. But I pray really good when I work out. So that's really important. I work out and I pray.
Yeah. Do you work out every day?
Every day.
Is that part of your therapy?
It is part of my therapy. Yeah. And it's amazing. What happens is when you work out, that stuff, I don't know the science behind it, but whatever it is makes me feel higher than anything I've ever experienced.
Yeah, that would be endorphins.
So endorphins, there you go. Yeah. I knew you would know. But that, and just, I mean, I pray about everything. If there's a problem, I give it to God first, because I don't know. When I try to control everything and be perfect, it doesn't work. So I always strive for excellence, but I'm not perfect.
And that's good to keep reminding yourself instead of shaming yourself for not being perfect. Because I know that a lot of people that are hooked on drugs and alcohol, they are very gifted people, meaning they have a gifted brain, they're perfectionists, and they have the ability to do more than most people possibly can do and think deeper than most people possibly can. Yes. And so they can scare themselves to death, get a lot of anxiety, all those kinds of things that alcohol and drugs can help, right? Mm-hmm. But if they worked, great. Guess what? They start making you sick. Yes. And they trap you, and then you go downhill. And so that is not the way. You found the way.
I did.
So you found God, you go to church, you pray. And Gateway is the church for you because you feel real. It feels real.
It feels amazing. I feel like it speaks. Like sometimes I think, oh, this message is just for me. Like I seriously feel that way.
Yeah. So it's really connects with you. It's your kind of church. Okay. And then you work out.
I work out. I try my best not to take any kind of chemicals. So I fall real heavily onto the essential oils.
Right.
Whether for feelings or for, like yesterday I was sick. I used the tummy guys all day.
The guys.
Thank you. And then the thieves on the feet. So, I try to do that. I, again, try to help others. Put others first.
Tell me about your marriage.
Oh, my marriage is good. We have 2 little boys, and these little boys know nothing of my past.
Yeah.
They are 3 and 7, and it's like God gave me a whole new chance to be a good mother, because I do have 2 older kids that know about where I come from, but I'm still an inspiration to them. Like it gives them courage that they can do it. One of my oldest son is 22, and he's a heroin addict. So that's another reason I stay sober.
Yeah.
Because I have to let him know that all things are possible.
Yeah.
So, my marriage is good. We're building a house right now. We work hard.
You always seem so joyful.
Yes.
When you come in, I see joy.
Yes.
I see your eyes are lit up. You have a bounce in your step, and I've seen this for years.
Yep.
And so you treat your employees so well, and they love you. And they put up with your essential oils that you have for them, right?
Yes.
To help them focus better and all this kind of stuff, right?
Yes.
And so, yeah. Now, if people, if you would like to reach Carrie, I just ask that you go to my email, ablivingwell@gmail.com. You want to give your email?
Can I give my Twitter?
Give your Twitter.
Okay. So my Twitter account is @chatfield211. I share, property management. I share God, and I and share working out, because those are my three main things.
Now, and they can message you on Twitter too.
Oh, yes. You can send me a message, anything you like.
And so, I just thank you so much for being here. I know that for you, this is part of your therapy as well, sharing with others. And so we're just so thankful. And I hope if you were feeling low today, that Carrie picked you up.
Oh.
And if you've been anywhere she's been, just that she motivated you and encouraged you and gave you the hope that she tries to reach out to give everyone with her life and with her ministry. And we just thank you so much for being on.
Aww.
Now, for you now, you're sharing at the prisons and you're sharing at the courts.
I just shared at the court last Friday for the first time, and that was powerful.
Wow, I bet it was. And that was different, because were they young or were they old?
No, it doesn't matter.
So these were people getting out of prison?
Getting out of the STAC program.
Oh, okay. What is that?
That's the thing that I went through, the intensive probation where you go to court every week.
Oh, gosh. And that's hard. They expect a lot.
So they're going into the world on their own for the first time. And I was just there to bring hope. I didn't share my story with them, but I told them what I did to get
well. And stay well.
Exactly.
Wonderful. And we just thank you for listening to Living Well. And if you would like to counsel or coach with me or anyone on our staff, just reach out to Life Solutions, coachingandcounseling.com, or you may call us 817-232-1363. And you have a blessed day. You too, Carrie.
Thank you so much. Thank you for letting me share.
You are so welcome. Wonderful. Have a wonderful week, guys, and live well.
Thank you again for joining us. Living Well with Ann Beal airs live every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. Pacific Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. We can't wait to see you again next week.
Thanks again for listening to the preceding program, brought to you on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. For more information about our network and to check out additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericaempowerment.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the preceding program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.